I am 79 years old, and I have to tell you something I have never said out loud. I spent 43 years being excellent at a job I secretly despised. 43 years. I showed up, I got promoted, I won awards, I gave speeches, and every single Sunday night something in my chest tightened like a fist. You are doing the same thing right now. I can see it from here. You are chasing the title, the salary, the approval of people whose names you will not remember in 20 years. And there is a trap buried inside that chase, a perfectly designed, socially approved trap, and it will not reveal itself until it is far too late to climb out. I found the way out, but I found it at 71, after the career was over, after the years were spent. Put whatever you're doing down, not because this is interesting, because this is urgent, because I am standing at the end of the road looking back at every turn, and I can see exactly where you are going, and I need you to hear me before you get there. When I was 28 years old, I made a decision that felt like the smartest thing I had ever done. I had been working for 3 years at a small architecture firm. I loved it, not in a naive way. I would lose track of time. I would sit at the drafting table and look up, and it was dark outside, and I had no memory of the hours passing. I drew buildings the way some people breathe, naturally, without thinking about it. Then a larger firm recruited me, bigger clients, bigger salary. They used the word prestigious 3 times in the first meeting, and I was 28, and I did not yet know that prestigious is often just a word that sophisticated people use to get you to do what they want. I took the job. The work was different there, more corporate, more political. The designs had to go through 6 layers of approval, and by the time they came back, they looked like something designed by a committee, which of course they were. But the pay was good. The business cards were thick and heavy. My parents were proud in a specific, visible way they had never been before, so I stayed. And then I stayed longer. And then staying became the only thing I knew how to do. By 45, I had completely forgotten what it felt like to lose track of time. Work was a series of problems to manage, meetings to survive, and credit to either claim or deflect. The buildings I was designing were impressive. They were also completely hollow to me. I could not have told you why any of them mattered. Nobody warned me that you can succeed your way into a life that has nothing to do with who you actually are. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Who is this old man, and why should I listen to him? Fair. I'll just say this. I have sat across from young architects, young lawyers, young engineers, young people in every kind of field for the better part of 3 decades in a mentorship capacity. I've watched the same mistakes repeat with a regularity that is almost mathematical. The same traps, the same justifications, the same moment, usually somewhere between 42 and 50, where a person looks up from the desk and realizes the life they are living is not the one they intended. I have also watched the rare few who avoided it, who built something real, and I have spent a long time studying what separated them from the rest. So here is what I know, not what I read, what I lived and watched others live. The first trap, mistaking status for meaning. When you are young and ambitious, status and meaning can feel like the same thing. They are not. They are almost opposites. Status is what other people assign to you. It requires an audience. It is always comparative. You have it because someone else has less. And because it depends entirely on external perception, it is inherently unstable. The moment the audience shifts, the status shifts with it. I had a colleague named Bernard. Bernard was the most decorated architect in our firm for nearly a decade. He moved through rooms the way important people move, with that particular ease that comes from knowing everyone is watching. And Bernard was good. I want to be fair to his memory. He was genuinely talented. But Bernard organized his entire professional life around being recognized as the best. Every project was evaluated primarily on how it would land with the people who gave out the industry awards. Every decision filtered first through the question, how does this make me look? When he retired, the recognition stopped, almost immediately. That is what happens. The institution moves on, the awards go to someone new, and if the work was always for the audience rather than for the thing itself, there is nothing left when the audience leaves. Bernard was lost within a year of retirement. I mean genuinely lost. Not bored, not restless, but hollowed. Like something structural had been removed and the whole building was leaning. He died 4 years after he stopped working. He was 68. I am not saying status kills you. I am saying that when status is the primary architecture of a life and it gets removed, some people do not know how to remain standing. Meaning is different. Meaning is internal. It does not require an audience. It is the thing that makes you lose track of time. It is quiet and it does not perform. If you cannot describe why the work you do matters without referencing how it makes you look, that is a warning sign. Pay attention to it. The longer you ignore it, the more expensive it gets. The second trap, letting money make the decision so you don't have to. Money is a convenient excuse. I say that having used it for years, every time I had an opportunity to step sideways, to take on a smaller project that genuinely excited me, to spend a year on something experimental and uncertain, to take less pay for work that felt alive, I let the salary differential make the decision, and I told myself it was responsible, mature, that I was thinking about my family, my future, my obligations. Some of that was real. I won't pretend it wasn't. But I also know, if I am honest, that the money was often a shield. It protected me from having to admit that I was afraid that the thing I actually wanted to do would fail, that I would try it and discover I was not as good as I needed to be, that the love I had for the work would not be enough to carry me. So I kept taking the safe path and calling it wisdom. There is a point, and I want you to hear this carefully, there is a point where financial caution becomes a long-term self-betrayal, where you have enough, and the thing keeping you from the work that matters is no longer money at all, but the habit of using money as the reason. I had enough at 40. I know that now. I did not know it then. Nobody told me to sit down at 40 and do the actual math. Not the anxious worst-case scenario math, but the real math. What do I actually need? What would it actually cost to change direction? Is the gap between what I have and what I need genuinely as large as I am telling myself? Most of the time it is not. The gap is mostly fear wearing a spreadsheet. The third trap, optimizing for the resume instead of the life. At some point in my mid-30s, I became very good at making decisions that looked excellent on paper. I took the projects that were high visibility. I joined the committees that signaled the right affiliations. I cultivated relationships with the right people, deliberately, strategically, in a way that still makes me slightly uncomfortable to remember, not because any of it was dishonest, but because the person making those decisions was performing a career rather than living one. The resume became the point, the actual experience of the work, the actual texture of the days, the actual quality of being alive inside those years, that became secondary. Background noise. I have a friend who took a completely different path. She studied urban planning. She turned down multiple opportunities at prestigious firms and spent her career working on housing projects in cities that couldn't afford famous architects. Her name never appeared in the publications I spent 30 years trying to get mentioned in. She made a fraction of my salary. At 65, she took me on a walk through a neighborhood in Philadelphia that she had spent 7 years working on. She knew the families by name. She pointed to a building and told me about the specific design decisions and why they made the people who lived there feel like they mattered. She was lit up from the inside in a way I had not felt since I was 25 and losing track of time at the drafting table. I stood there on that sidewalk in Philadelphia and I felt something I did not expect. I felt grief, not for her, for myself, for the 30 years of optimizing for the wrong thing. Build the life, not the resume. The resume is what you hand to strangers. The life is what you actually inhabit. The fourth trap, waiting for permission to change. This one I almost cannot talk about without the weight of it pressing on me. I knew at 53 that I needed to change direction. I knew it with the kind of quiet certainty that is not dramatic, not a crisis, not a breakdown, just a clear, steady, undeniable knowing. And I waited. I waited for the right moment. I waited until the children were fully settled. I waited until the mortgage was done. I waited until I had had the conversation with the right people and gotten some version of approval or at least understanding. I waited until I was 68, 15 years. 15 years of knowing and not moving, and the years I spent after I finally made the change, working on the smaller projects, the ones that mattered to me, designing for community organizations and schools and small towns that needed someone to care. Those were the years I was most alive, but there were 15 fewer of them than there should have been. Nobody is going to give you permission. Not your parents, not your boss, not your spouse, not the industry, not the culture. They are all too busy managing their own unlived lives. The permission is something you give yourself, and you give it by deciding that the cost of staying is higher than the cost of changing. I wish I had done that math at 53 instead of 68. And the last thing, the thing I keep coming back to. Whatever work you are doing, however important, however lucrative, however impressive, it will end. The position will end. The title will end. The company will restructure or retire or simply move on, and the thing that organized your days will be gone, and you will be left alone with the question of who you actually are when the work stops defining you. I was not prepared for that question. I had spent so long answering it with the job that when the job ended, I genuinely did not know. The people I have watched navigate that transition well, the ones who do not disappear into depression or restlessness or frantic busyness, they share one thing. They had always been building something that was not contingent on the approval of an institution. They had relationships they had actually invested in, work they did because it mattered to them, not because it signaled something to others. A sense of self that predated the career and could survive it. Build that thing. Build it now. Not as a retirement plan, as the actual architecture of the life you are living today. Because the Sunday night tightness in the chest of that fist, it is not stress. It is your real self trying to get your attention. Listen to it before it is 79 years old and looking back. I am tired in the way that old men get tired. Not defeated, just finished with pretending there is more time than there is. If you are 35 and the work you are doing hollows you out, but the salary makes it easy to stay, I am asking you to take that seriously, right now. Not as a crisis, but as information. If you are 45 and you have been waiting for the right moment to change direction, the moment is not coming. You have to make the moment. And if you are 26 and you are choosing between the prestigious thing and the thing that makes you lose track of time, I am begging you to choose the second one. I am begging you, from 79 years of having chosen incorrectly. The buildings I am proudest of are not the ones in the magazines. They are the 3 small libraries I designed in my last 7 years of working, for towns that could barely fund them. Nobody wrote about them. I do not have the awards. But I know the names of the children who use them. That is the whole thing. That is what I should have been building toward all along.